Welcome back to Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. I'm David Mendez, and today we're back with a brand new episode of Papa PhD Gold. This week I'm featuring thesis writing expert Anna Clemens. If you've ever cringed at the idea of selling your research, this conversation will give you a brand new, fresh perspective. So if you want to get unstuck in your writing and in selling your science, this is the episode for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD, your weekly inspiration for post-PhD career development. With me, David Mendez. One of the things that you mentioned that was interesting and that I think people should take note is when you are communicating with this general editor, you are not communicating with an academic. It's someone who is working for a business. You said something that I think often is not a bad word, but anyway, it can be almost a bad word. Sell your article. You said that. And I do think, if you're listening and this kind of give you chills hearing this, try to accept it in a way and say, in this specific framework of communicating with this person who is kind of a gatekeeper of, does this article go to the next step or not? I need to, if it's not you, if you're not able to have this conversation in a less academic and more selly marketing way, maybe someone in your lab will, but I think it's important to develop a relationship with these people where you can have a relaxed conversation and just talk, like kind of popularizing what the article is about. This is kind of what I got from what you said, and it's the first time I hear about it, and that's why I kind of put a note to talk about it.
Yeah, I love that you picked up on that because you're right. Like selling is the dirty word in academia, and if it makes you cringe, I mean, running my own business, I had to think about selling. I had to really examine my relationship with selling because of that. Because I come from academia as well. I have been there. I know how like selling and capitalism, things like that are frowned upon. And I mean, I do agree. I hate bad salesmanship, but selling can also be good. Selling is not inherently bad. That's what I want to say is if you think about, you have a problem, right? And let's say you go to the pharmacy with a skin problem and you tell them about your problem and they give you a really good product that solves your skin, I don't know, eczema or whatever. You're like super happy that it will help your problem and you walk away and you use the product, your skin gets better. You're like, wow. I mean, this is selling. Selling isn't only sleazy and bad. Selling is basically, and I mean, I don't talk about selling much actually. I talk way more about storytelling, but lots of people don't like storytelling because they think it's too salesy. And because storytelling is like, oh, it means like, oh, you're like exaggerating your findings, you're like overstating them. And I feel like this is not the fault of selling and this is not the fault of storytelling, but this is the fault of using it the wrong way, using the tool the wrong way. Like there is a way of using the tool the right way. And this is where we really try to think about where your reader's at. Like, well, I always say it's like put yourself in your reader's shoes. Mm-hmm. Think about where they're at. Like the general editor, as you say, they're not an academic, or they probably did like a PhD postdoc, but they're not in academia anymore. Look up like the general editor you're submitting to, look up what field they're covering and just get it, think about, okay, how many research topics do they need to be able to judge, right? Like they won't have in-depth knowledge the same as your peer reviewers or as your like direct colleague. So just thinking about that and trying to like pitch it at a level that they will be able to understand the significance. And actually often it is that we ourselves as the author haven't really thought about the significance, not in that specific way. I mean, I see this happen all the time, that thinking about what story you are telling helps you as the author to actually realize what potential impact your research could have, because we often don't. Like especially if you're a PhD student, you probably struggle with this a little more because you're so close to your research and you haven't read all the literature surrounding, that maybe your PI has. or someone who has been working on that topic for a longer time, I suggest just re-examine, just challenge. If you feel like selling is a bad thing, just think about it a little bit, try to challenge that thought a little bit.
Yeah. Jen says, and it's interesting, selling is like inviting people to your party. If you don't, nobody will come. And it's true. You just, if you do it according to your values, it'll be fine. It's just that actually in that space, the academic space, some things have a bad ring to them. It's like one thing that I've tried to find a new expression for is personal branding. I think this is really interesting. And I think just picking up on what you said, doing this work of doing a little bit of storytelling and selling of the story of your research will also for sure have impacts on talking with stakeholders who might be funding you later on, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's only positives to that. Now, the other thing I picked up on that I found really, really interesting, it has to do with the peer reviewers. And you said, it's on you to be clear. And I do remember also that with that reaction of, oh, they didn't understand what, they didn't understand what I wrote. There's some frustration there that I remember seeing people getting. And I wonder, I feel that getting frustrated is not the useful reaction. So like you said, these comments that might sound like they don't know enough on the topic, they don't get it, is kind of stopping you from actually looking at what you wrote and making it better. I feel that's what you were saying. I was just wanting to make a point of reinforcing it, because emotions can get in the way of you getting a better product at the end.
You're right. I mean, it really is like that. There's actually, in general, there is a saying that is called kill your darlings. Sometimes we are very in love with our own, we have a sentence or turn of phrase we really like. It happens to me all the time when I write. I'm like, I love this sentence. When you reread it or when you get feedback and you feel like, okay, it doesn't go. It's always the one you like the most that unfortunately they don't help, they don't help you get the flow you want. They don't help you. I mean, they may be breaking the flow. They may make it unclear, or there's a better way of putting it. Don't be too attached to what you have written, and do get feedback. I mean, it is really a process and it is a skill. So it's a skill you need to do. To develop a skill, you first need to know how to do it, and then you need to practice it, right? Even if someone tells you this is how you do it, I always think it's better if you have someone who tells you how to do it, because then you kind of have a shortcut. But then once you know kind of the system or the strategies, then practice it and get feedback. Have other people read it, have your lab mate read it, your supervisor, whoever, read it and ask them, okay, is this clear? Did you follow this? Or is there any confusion? I always think it's good to have someone read it who doesn't know so much about your studies. You have a bit of an outside perspective, and you don't need to give them your whole article. Just if you have points where you're unsure or something, you can kind of prevent, getting that feedback from the peer reviewers if you do that.
Thank you for listening to this new episode of Season 6 of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. Have a question about this interview? Want to leave a comment on the podcast? Have someone you want to recommend to be interviewed? Go to speakpipe.com/papaphd and leave me a voice note. Just hit the big record button and leave me an up to 90-second message. I listen to all my messages and I consider all of them for feature on future episodes. So it's speakpipe.com/papaphd. Hope to hear from you soon.